r/ask Reddit. What company policy at your job might actually be illegal? If you get injured at my work while on the clock, you must see the in-house medical staff and have a drug test before leaving. But they charge you $500 if you see the in-house medical staff. I'm pretty sure that's not legal, and I know loads of other employees who don't report injuries because of not wanting to deal with the $500 charge. While the $500 charge isn't actually illegal, it is required by law that you not see any doctor or medical staff that works for or with the company, unless it is for life-saving only. My ex had an injury at work while working at a hospital. She broke her wrist and they had to have her go to a different hospital to be examined. She was kind of pissed about the fact until it was explained why. As a bartender, we're not allowed to call 911. Each call counts as half a point against our liquor license. If we need officer assistance, we have to call the non-emergency line. I've heard of real emergencies happening needing real medical attention and the bartender getting fired for calling 911. This one sounds more like the law is the one that's wrong here. I saw it all the time in college. When you punish people for getting help, they won't stop needing help. They'll just stop getting it. Yep, that's definitely a problem with the law, because it assumes, categorically, that any call for emergency services at the bar is the bar's fault. There's a difference between someone's being overserved and getting hurt because they were intoxicated and someone's walking into the bar and immediately dropping dead from a heart attack. Or even if a person gets injured outside of the bar for whatever reason. That is, it unquestionably has nothing to do with the bar, and the bar is the nearest place to go into and sit down and call for assistance. That's a good way to make a situation worse if calling for help for any reason jeopardizes the bar's ability to make money. That sounds like a fault of the liquor law itself. Liquor laws are frequently bullshit. The Nice Liquor Board is known as being a bag of dongs, but the beer laws in PA make NY sound like a speakeasy. Not my current workplace, but my last one. We'd fill out timesheets up to 4 weeks in advance and got told to just put 8 hours a day in each day. If we worked more than 8 hours a day, happened frequently, we got told that the timesheet said 8, so that's what we were paid for. Anybody who refused to fill them out ahead of time usually got let go pretty soon thereafter. Fill out 4 weeks of timesheets. Don't show up for work. Wait 4 weeks. Sue for unpaid wages. Boss has to either pay you or admit to violating labor laws. In all states you should be able to sue for unpaid wages. Walmart lost a case in Virginia about a decade ago for having employees work on breaks. Even people that were no longer employed received compensation. I, thankfully, don't work there anymore, but even if I did, there becomes the issue of proving you worked those hours. They have signed timesheets saying you worked 8 and bosses who will likely corroborate that. If you know ahead of time they're going to duck you, just set them up and record enough evidence to prove they're lying. Take some time-stamped pictures of the pre-signed hour sheet. Take hourly pictures of yourself at work in front of a clock. Shit like that won't help recover past fraud. But if anyone's actually in that situation, even if you can't risk your livelihood right now, you can sure as shit sue them later when you don't work there anymore if you gather some evidence for a rainy day. My last job worked me full-time hours but called me a part-timer to duck me out of benefits. I got out of there as quickly as I could. Your state labor board would love to hear from you. This is standard practice for employment by the state of Delaware. They're called seasonal employees, but work year-round positions at full-time hours. Yep, Rehoboth Beach has a ton of foreigners working seasonal jobs. The conditions they work it at all those t-shirt shops on the avenue is ducked. Someone close to me is a manager in action but not in title or pay, and their boss is apparently real shady with pay. Victims or witnesses to a crime on our property are not allowed to call 911 if there's a crime committed there. Anything ranging from a small petty theft up to rape or murder, we are to notify our direct manager first. Even if the manager isn't working that day, then that manager is to call his or her manager, who then calls the security office about the incident, and together they decide whether or not to call the police. Thankfully, this hasn't happened yet. It sure sounds like someone is up to something illegal at your place of employment. I work at a restaurant located in a mall. We had a rather serious situation that required us to call the police. They come, resolve the issue, take statements, leave, All good. The next day the mall manager and head of security tell us we broke the rules by directly calling the police. The only thing the security guy carries is a radio. What good were you going to do against some drunken a-hole with a weapon? Call the police? For your information, in many states you can't be fired for taking necessary actions to protect yourself or others, even if those actions violate company policy. There was a case in Utah recently where 2 security officers tackled a guy with a gun, were fired for violating a policy against physical confrontation, and won a court case over it. You didn't say if you got in any real trouble for this, but thought you might want to know that, if something does happen, you may or may not have a case, depending on where you live. The last restaurant I worked at, there would be a 35% tip out for all servers that would just go to the owner. Not only that, but some of the servers were just paid regular hourly wages, but still collected tips that went straight to the owner. On top of that, there would be times where you can ask, "Hey, where's my paycheck?" and the boss would give you a 20, say he'll give you another 100 next week, and then the rest a few days later. Then you ask again for that week's paycheck and it's like, didn't I just pay you? Pretty ducked up, and IDK why I worked there as long as I did. No, this was not Amy's Baking Company. Totally not legal for owner/MGR to get tips from servers. My old boss was like that. I tried reporting him and labor laws say I can't file a report until the 10th late day. He always paid me the last of my check on the 9th late day. Son of a beach knew the law. They almost went under, but some idiot saved their restaurant. We have unlimited PTO for our group, but we've been warned never to use it. When layoff time rolls around, they pick the person who has used the most PTO, so calling in sick twice a year could cost you your job. They also make us make up our hours to reach 40 when we are sick, even though a salary. I doubt that's illegal, but come flu season it spreads through our office like wildfire because no one is allowed sick days. That sounds quite illegal. It definitely isn't in the States. It's a growing trend that companies give unlimited vacation days, which sounds really good to new hires, but once you're in there you realize it effectively means you have none. I'm not sure if it's illegal, but it certainly did suck. I worked at a nursing home for a while and we weren't allowed to discuss our pay, and we weren't allowed to disclose to anyone that we were short-staffed. We'd have one nurse's aide for the entire wing and they were doing everything as fast as humanly possible. But if a patient complained that they were being ignored, which they were because of the staffing issue, we were just supposed to apologize and sit there and take them yelling at us and calling us lazy and not tell them the reason why. I hated that job. Backbreaking work, doing the work of 3 people, and everyone yelling at me all the time. A company I used to work for tried to do this, so I brought up that it was an illegal policy, to which they responded with, "Oh well, you signed a contract saying you can't. Just because you sign a contract, that doesn't make the policy legal. That makes the contract illegal, you dipshits." Small correction. That clause is unenforceable. I'm sure the contract probably has a severability clause that upholds the rest even if a clause fails. The assembly procedure written for the optical components of a space-based telescope for the USAF. All optical assembly must be done in the nude. That line made it through 3 contractor reviews, 2 USAF reviews, and 1 NASA review. So when time came for the assembly, the one young lady on a team mostly populated with old guys from Switzerland said duck no. The procedure was redlined and signed off very quickly. Haha, what the duck. All optical assembly must be done in the nude sounds like the kind of thing that you slip in to see if anyone will notice. I feel like that would increase contamination, on top of it being ducked. I almost wonder if that line was put in there to check if people actually read the manual. We're prohibited from attending and participating in any type of political gathering and or protest. We're also prohibited from using personal money to donate to charity. Why would you ever be forbidden to donate to charity? I think they want people to have the donation come directly from the paycheck, so the company can get tax benefits. There was a similar thread a while ago where the company basically strong-armed their employees into doing this every month so the company could rake in benefits. Not illegal, but a real pain in the ass. Only 50% of sick leave could be unscheduled. I ended up filing for FMLA. When the doctor was filling out the paperwork I explained why and she said, "Who schedules being sick?" No wonder I have to fill out so many of these forms. One of my co-workers had about 400 hours of sick leave accrued that they will never get paid for. I had the same thing at an old job. My father got sick last November and I was about 50 hours for the year short to qualify for FMLA. He was hospitalized on a Monday, so I called and asked to schedule the rest of the week off. Wouldn't allow it and wrote me up. I got pulled into my manager's office at a retail job one time after one of the new hires told me that they were getting paid more than I was. As I was training him, I was pretty pissed off and I wasn't quiet about it, so he informed me that it was against company policy to discuss our wages. I told him that that was illegal and he just stared at me like I wasn't supposed to know that. Yeah, this shit here. It's illegal, but a lot of retail places push that narrative to scare people. I've been in situations where I'm at say a level 8 pay grade and a level 4 pay grade was hired at the same rate with no prior experience or a lower sales job, even after my raises over the years and merit. I found out later the other retail stores in the company by district didn't all do this and I'm getting screwed by my grams. I brought it up and was told, well, we are a bad market, and those other stores are better markets, so just deal with it. A lot of people transfer and commute to bigger stores or just leave after a month now. Not currently working the job in question anymore, so I feel I can say it readily enough. As a pizza delivery driver, for many chains, you sign off that you waive your right to a break even if you work 8 hours or more. Frequently pulled 9 and 10 hour shifts. Sometimes even up to 12 hours without a break, all the while making less than minimum wage while on the road. For customers who frequently think the delivery charge goes to the driver, when most frequently it is collected by the store instead, so they don't tip. Add to that your robbery target, and even if you feel your life is threatened, if you fight back against your attacker you will get fired. Double quick if you are legally carrying a weapon yourself. Federal labor laws regarding tipped employees require that you make at least minimum wage including tips. Employers have to make up any difference if the tips earned don't make their hourly rate equal to the minimum. The last job I worked at was a school. We had part year, teachers, and year-round employees, operations staff, but the year-round employees technically got PTO hours that were equivalent to the time the part-year employees had off, something like 350 hours. We weren't allowed to use our PTO hours and they were just converted and paid out as a bonus at the end of the summer. I was the IT person and was a year-round employee. We had some leadership changes and I put in 2 months notice because I didn't like where the school and its leadership were headed, but I wanted to give them time to find and train a new person before I left. I had about 200 hours of accrued PTO at that time. The school network tried to duck me and said that I would just lose those PTO hours when I quit. Apparently I was the first person to question that and fight them on it. Eventually they caved and kept me on the payroll for a month and a half after I left because they didn't have a system for paying out PTO mid-year. The turnover rate was really high. 60 something people quit just at my school in the 3 years I was working there. There were only 1 or 2 people left from the original staff after 5 years at another school in the network, and I was the first person to get a PTO payout. My last job forced everyone to come in 15 minutes early before the store opened at 10 AM, and your employment was threatened if you weren't there for this 9:45 meeting. However, we only got paid to work from 10:06. Say what you will about it just being 15 minutes, but that shit adds up over the course of the year into around $1,000 plus a year that was unaccounted for. Anyone know if that's actually illegal? I quit because of tiny BS like this throughout the establishment, but no one else really fought back on this rule. While I thought it was ridiculous, definitely illegal, and you can file a wage claim with no issues, the burden of proof that they paid you will be on them. You have to show up 15 minutes early. You're considered late if you aren't 15 minutes early, and you aren't paid for the 15 minutes. I think you should be 15 minutes early to be professional, but you shouldn't be forced to do it. Obligatory not my place of work comment, but my wife's hospital forbids their employees from discussing their salaries with one another. They might have a valuable class action lawsuit if you can get this policy in writing, or a written disciplinary action based on this policy. Please run, don't walk to your local labor lawyer's office. They will be very happy to make your acquaintance as this has been illegal since 1935. That's the trick, is getting it in writing. Most companies don't forbid talking about it. They just make it very taboo. My work does random drugs testing. A group of females I work with had to have a male HR employee watch them pee. THW company said that those ladies were suspicious, so they had reason to believe they might cheat. Legit, half of the employees at the company carry fake pee. I told them all to get a lawyer. A regular HR employee shouldn't be watching anyone pee into a cup, let alone a male watching a female. One said he told her to lift her shirt because he couldn't see, but I wasn't there and I'm not sure if I believe that part of it. This sort of task is meant to be delegated to impartial and qualified medical professionals, for example, a nurse, to ensure it's legit and above board. We had to work in the lab, even when the water was off in the building. This came from up high. Our lab boss just told us to look busy and do paperwork, so we would not get hurt. But the department chair thought it was fine to work without the ability to wash your hands or use the safety shower. Also, the bathrooms did not work, but apparently that is not something an employer has to provide. I worked 4 years at Better Buy, a popular electronics giant in the US, and a very common practice at this place is to hire part-time employees and give them full-time hours. Another very common practice is to push employees to quit by different tactics. Examples would be cutting their hours to 1 day a week, then 1 for 2 weeks, and slowly take them to a month until they quit. Another example is constantly being checked on performance and nitpicking to force a quit, or targeting them for minutes of tardiness to write them up and apply pressure. Purpose of this, from what I was told by the GM and all managers under, is that Better Buy has to pay about 1-2k a pop for employees that get canned, for legal reasons or so. Those force push tactics are used for employees that managers don't like, are performing well but not overachieving, and employees who have lawyer friends and families. I had a good 3.5 years in that place before I climbed in my career, in the door group. I loved that job, but there was definitely shady shit going on everywhere. You cannot poop in the front restroom. Well, it's not a policy, but I was written up for it, and told that if I have to poop to go to the other bathrooms at the other sides of the building so that people don't have to smell it, or the air freshener. I don't know about our accreditation standards, but we admit students with little chance of graduating. All female employees must report to the boss's room after closing. Turns out the boss liked tying up the girls. He made us stand from youngest to oldest and then moved in real close, not touching but almost. You could hear him smell you, and then scream about how your uniform is messed up. This lasted a few weeks before someone's father came in red-faced and angry. We all had to fill out forms when it happened. And who else was there? Short story, it was a bad time at McDonald's. Not really a company policy but an ethical dilemma. I am an attorney, which means that I have to maintain client confidentiality as part of my job. People confess crimes to me and there is nothing I can do about it. However, in my state, all adults are mandated reporters of child abuse. If someone confesses child abuse to me, legally I have to report it, but ethically I cannot. To answer the inevitable question, I would report it. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.